Welcome to Beyond the Break, a podcast where we dive deep into the stories behind today's entrepreneurs, leaders, and change makers, and we uncover what it takes to build something that lasts. Let's get started. Beyond the Break.
All right, Chris Bocklet, welcome to Beyond the Break. You ready to go?
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for being here today. You're wearing your California hat for the PLL. Congratulations on being an assistant coach with that program.
Thank you so much.
And we've got a lot to go through today, which really dates back to your time, what led you to lacrosse, being a national champion, being in a family of lacrosse. So I'm really excited to hear your story. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
So everything seems to be lacrosse about you, and you've had a lot of success, and congratulations on that. What sparked your interest in lacrosse to start with?
I grew up a big family, two older brothers and a younger sister, and I kind of followed what anything my brothers would do. And I'll never forget, we went upstate New York it might have been like Easter break, or actually might have been Memorial Day weekend, and we watched Syracuse play lacrosse on the TV. And the Powells were out there.
Oh yeah.
Then we went in the backyard and started playing. And I know my brothers got drawn to it. We all started to get drawn to it. And that's when baseball officially was no more. And it was just, we were a lacrosse family. And we spent the time in the backyard playing. It's just started to embrace it and get competitive, started to get really competitive with it.
And you grew up in a great area in New York where lacrosse is arguably the best in the country. As a New Yorker,
yeah.
Long Island, but upstate New York is pretty darn good as well. So then you're going through your progression, and in high school, did you know that you wanted to play at the next level in college? When did you realize you were good enough or had the ability to shoot for that goal?
Yeah, so I was a multi-sport athlete. Okay. I played lacrosse, basketball, and football.
All right.
Lacrosse. Actually, I in the beginning I thought I wanted to be a basketball player. And then I started to play AAU basketball, near New York City, and realized, maybe this is not for me. People are already dunking, and we're in 8th grade, and so I like competing in all sports, but lacrosse definitely. I found that the more time I spent towards it, the more I could kind of change a game.
Yeah.
And my speed and size didn't matter as much as my stick skills. And I'll never forget going to a camp, and Casey Powell was at the camp, and I was always looked up to people and asked them, how they got there. I was eager to learn, and I'll never forget. He said, if you want to be the best player and play at the highest level, all you have to do is have the best stick on the field.
All right.
And that was something that he didn't say, you need to run this time in a 40 or bench this. It was really just something like, a hand-eye thing that you can completely control. And so I realized at a younger age that I could excel at lacrosse by just putting in the time and not having certain tangibles.
Yeah, so that's time on the wall or the rebounder as well. So is that something you do every day? Did you have certain goals that you had as you got a little older?
I definitely we did a lot of wall ball, and I played. Everything was like fun too, So we played in the backyard with my siblings. I watched their games. I looked up to them, and also at the same time we're a competitive family. So we played after dinner. We would play ping pong, and I want to beat my brothers, and so I learned that if I want to be better than them, I need to put more time. And I think we all competed in a really healthy way, which made it fun as a family. We went to each other's games, we supported each other, and we helped coach each other in ways too. So I think we had a lot really competitive but supportive family.
So then some of your siblings also had some great success, right?
Yeah.
Where did they go to school?
So 3 of the 4 of us won national championships. We always give a hard time to my oldest brother who did it. But Matt played at Johns Hopkins and won a national championship. Casey played at Northwestern. She won a national championship. I played at Virginia and won a national championship. And then, however, Mike redeemed himself. And he played pro lacrosse and ended up winning a pro lacrosse championship.
Gosh. So 4 championships in that house.
Yes. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yep.
So I remember you told me, and we're really fortunate to have you in our town, working with our kids, training them as well. I remember you telling me a story, though. You arrive at college, right? And you're probably one of the best in your town, in your region. Then you go to college. You're expecting to be a starter right away. Like, what happened?
I think so, I was a big time recruit out of high school. I think I was the number 2 or number 3 recruit. And then you get to a place like Virginia, and I'll never forget sitting and watching their highlights from the season before, and all these guys were so good. And now, you get to a spot, and it was a humbling experience. All of a sudden, I was getting really nervous. All the guys who were all Americans are sitting right next to you, and at the same school, they broke the same records you broke.
Yeah.
And so, my brother gave me a really great advice. He goes, Chris, there's 2 senior all Americans ahead of me. And he's like, Chris, you need to learn and you need to grow this year. You can't just sit back.
Wow.
And so I watched those guys, and instead of, being bitter, that these guys were better than me, I learned how, what did they do to be the players that they were in All-Americans. And I learned from Garrett Billings. I kind of changed my style of offense, to kind of do some of the things that he does. The other thing that I did that helped me have success is, so my freshman year, I didn't play and I learned. And my sophomore year, there was one guy on the team that I knew was going to be playing.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so I said, if I can help him, and help him be a better player, then I'm going to play with him instead of watching him. And that was Steele Stanek, who ended up winning the Twarton. And I learned, I talked to him after practice and learned how to become a better player with him. And then that, it gave me the spot and quickly helped me have success with him and make the team stronger.
So he was another attackman on the time.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So think of that mentality you had, right? Is you were very good, but you realized you had to learn more. You had to improve, and you were open-minded to that.
Yes.
And then in addition to that, you realized being a teammate would benefit you and the team as well. So it's just neat to see that evolution from people who were already, you could have just sat back and said, hey, I'm great, and I'm just going to keep doing what got me here. But you adapted to that.
You have to evolve.
That's
and you have to be able to work. You can't just be great. You have to be great for the team.
Yeah. And what about the discipline? How much of the structure did the coach or the team provide versus what did you have to do on your own?
I think that's the biggest turning point was, what you do on your own, because over the summer, there's open spots, but as soon as you get back in that fall is when the teams are kind of decided and spots are made, which means you're on your own for that whole summer. And there was kind of a defining moment for me. That was the motivation I needed that summer. And that was, we just lost in the Final Four. We played Cornell, I believe it was in Baltimore, and we're getting on the bus, and they were talking about next year, and those 2 All-Americans I was talking to you about graduated.
All right.
And so all of a sudden, we had some captains and people talking about who were going to be the next spots to fill. And I was sitting in the back of that bus, and all of a sudden my ears perked because I'm wondering, are they going to say my name? I thought they were, I was big recruit and stuff. And they started talking about the guys that they're bringing in. This guy, Matt White, who played at Ridgefield, and he's the number 2 or whatever attackman. Then they got this other lefty, Connor English. I heard he's so good. And then they were talking about moving middies to attack. And that whole conversation. So
you're not even part of the thought.
No. So I wasn't even in that conversation.
Wow.
And that was a defining moment. It needed to happen to me.
Yeah.
It hurt. And that bus ride was emotional, and I was stressed. And at the same time, I had my dad in the back of my ear, like, hey, Chris, do you want to transfer? Do you want to go to other places? But I felt like I haven't put what I could put in.
Yeah.
And then that hearing that conversation sparked something in me that, I haven't proven to myself what I could do. I haven't proven to my teammates what I can do to help this team. And it was the motivation that I used as instead of fear, as fuel for that summer to prepare me to be ready. And I was in the best shape mentally and physically that fall to take that spot.
I think that's huge because so many people who are successful, especially in sport when they're younger, just think it's going to keep happening, and I think even nowadays people feel like they're entitled to more and more success because you see it now, right? On social media, you see everybody who looks so successful or so wealthy and have everything and you should just have it. But, you realized you have to work for it.
Yeah.
You had a great foundation. You had the success, but now there was a new challenge in front of you and you stepped up. You didn't just say, well, they're wrong, right? Yeah. They chose the wrong, someone better than me. So, well, that's amazing to put in that effort. And, I know you're big, you have a great health journey and meditation. I want to get into that, but in college, did you have some of those traits there? Was that being taught to you? Talk about that, the physical and the mental.
Yeah. Part. So some of the mental sides, the biggest one that I used in college, so I got from my high school quarterback coach, or I was a high school quarterback, our varsity head coach. So I was the captain and quarterback, but I struggled remembering the plays. We ran a spread, and I got off the plays. Everything was coded, and so I had to remember everything. But lacrosse was first for me. So I put lacrosse first. Okay. So I would get so nervous before the games because for football. Yeah. Lacrosse came a lot easier. But in football, it'd be that first period class and I'd be sitting there and my knees would be buckling and I'm like thinking about the game and I'm like stressing. And he would do this he before our game, he put everyone in the gym and he dimmed the lights and he would talk about the game and envision it and going through the motions and seeing yourself, seeing the national anthem, and then, seeing that first play and talking to yourself. And when he did that, seeing things before they happen and building that vision, it totally calmed me down. Yeah. Right. And I would walk to the game and I felt like I already played it out. Right. And I even knew I saw myself doing the good things. I also even saw myself doing the bad thing, but most importantly, telling myself what I'm going to say when the bad things happen, because that's going to happen. You're going to make mistakes, but how do you respond to it is everything. Do you keep thinking about and dwelling on that mistake? Or do you focus on the next play and just talk? And so that changed, I had a great year of football because of that practice and I kept it going. And I used that, I would show up to the locker room early before every lacrosse game and I would practice the vision. I'd lie down, close my eyes and work on that and just kind of seeing what you want. Because I truly believe you can, when you manifest and you see yourself doing something, right, then you're putting it out there and you're more likely to accomplish it, right?
No, I think that you're spot on. It's funny. I do a similar exercise. A lot of times we get to present to a board and I try to get a visual of what the boardroom looks like. And then I'll even share with my coworkers, like, all right, the room's got a dais or it's got the table's at a U shape or the table's this shape, just so the more that you're prepared, then you can just be successful. Yeah. I think, and it translates to something as little as what I'm talking about and visualizing success. And that is amazing. I attempt to do that in golf recently, and I've actually seen it work. Why are you laughing? But no, I think it's so powerful that you have those exercises overall. So, fast forward now, you graduate, you've got the ring, you've got their whole family successful. Now you're in the big world, right? Yeah. And I know you went into the professional lacrosse at the time as well. When did you realize you needed to build a career?
Yeah, I think I always laugh about this one because my parents, with all your friends, they all would go to New York City. They build their resume. They intern. And I always worked lacrosse camps. I always had a job, but it was never a corporate job. And my friends' parents would come down to Virginia and they're from Greenwich and Wilton, and they'd be like, you're going to get a job in the city. And they were just telling them. And then I never had that pressure from my parents. I'm like, Mom, do I have to do that? And so they kind of gave me that freedom. I think they had trust in us that we were hard workers and that we'd figure it out. But, so I never had that pressure, but, always kind of had a bit of an entrepreneurship. I saw my brothers, they went into the city and then they did coaching in lacrosse. And then, we as a family, we put together our own first overnight lacrosse camp. And it came from a lot of ideas my brothers had. And then a push from my mom actually was the spark plug to make it happen. And when I was going into my, senior year, we did an overnight X10 camp that had a lot of success, and we pretty much brought all the things that we love, being outdoors, campfires, playing multiple sports, to a lacrosse camp setting. And we had, 200 kids there. So after graduating, I got into lacrosse. I always thought I wanted to be around kids. It's what makes me the happiest.
Sure.
And so started obviously playing for professional lacrosse, but most importantly started coaching. And I started my first company, which was CB Lacrosse. I don't know if you don't remember.
No, I missed that.
You don't know if you remember that, but it was, I did camps in all places that I like to travel to, the Hamptons, in Park City, and I would connect with people, and I'd travel using the MLL's expense and play on the weekends, and then I'd travel to
Very smart.
to
Very
places, and I'd run little camps, and that was my first business, and my first taste of being an entrepreneur and figuring out how to work the business.
I love that, because it's not a linear path, right? It's not go to work at a firm, start and move your way up. You created something. You're an entrepreneur, and that's fantastic to have that spirit as well. And it's been interesting watching you evolve this, right? And my son was fortunate enough to be a camp counselor at one of those, and it's amazing the experience. First off, letting a 19-year-old be a camp counselor was funny to hear his stories talking about the kids.
Yeah.
And he was just at that point still a very young man, if not a kid himself. But I see you post about the kids, they're writing things down. Talk about some of the other exercises. They're not just learning lacrosse, they're going whitewater rafting. What are you doing when the kids are writing things down?
Yeah. So took that CB Lacrosse and turned it into X10 Lacrosse, which is overnight camps throughout the country. And it's a big emphasis on leadership. You have kids ages 10 to 15 that are there to learn lacrosse, but the biggest thing is growth, and it's being on your own. And it's like a mini taste of like the college life, because they have freedom. When they go to the cafeteria, they can eat what they want. We try to limit it. We turn off the soda machines, but it's a big step in growth. And I think that's what the kids need right now is like they need growth. If they don't, if they lose their water ball, it's not mom and dad's fault. It's like, where did you leave it last? And you need to find that. And, we have an emphasis on kind of Camper of the Week award. And that's someone who's waking up, they make their bed, right? They start the day by one good habit. That's what they tell you in the Army to set, you start your day off by making your bed. Because when you do something productive, you're bound to have more productive things coming along the way.
Love that.
And it's a great way to start the day. So I think that's the biggest component that brings people back is kids like that freedom and taste of it. And also beyond lacrosse, it's you're doing all different activities. You're playing different sports. You're hiking. You're whitewater rafting. You're tubing down a river. You're making new friends. And the biggest thing, the hardest thing that continues to be the hardest challenge is a no screen camp.
Now we're talking.
Yeah, so
I love that. So tell me more about that.
Yeah, so I mean, it's in the beginning it wasn't an issue. Yeah. It was just like kids didn't have cell phones, but now it's we want kids to just to connect with each other, and the kids that sneak their phones, they're the ones that are in the room disconnected and they're playing games on their phone, or
so you see it real time.
You see it real time.
Oh man.
Or the ones that the parents are afraid to, like, they feel like their kid's not ready, so they'll just want to say, "Are you having fun? Are you okay?" Blah blah blah, and then it's like, no, we need the disconnect. Like it's a big step. So that's been the biggest kind of thing to play around with now, because people are just so hooked on their phones. But it's a good balance and taste of that separation.
Okay. Now, overall, I do want to dig into, like, I think you do a lot of work with the kids on their goals or what they're going to do. So if you can explain that a little bit more. Yeah,
I think, I do this with X10, and I do a lot of mentoring kids as well. And the biggest thing is helping a person develop a vision, right? And helping them, see what their vision is. Because if they don't have a vision, then it's not going to happen for them. Their parents can't have a vision for them. Oh, and that happens a lot. He's, so he can do this and this and this. And so it's like, no, connecting with the kids themselves and figuring out, all right, what is their vision, and then based on their vision, okay, helping them set up goals for themselves, and developing that. And I think it's really important to write your goals down, because once you have them written down, you put them in a place and you see them, now it becomes real. Yeah. And then most importantly, now, what actions, and I think that is key. Is you got to have an action plan. Or is it waking up early? Is it going before practice or after practice? And I think that's where I like to, work with people, especially when they're lacrosse goals. It's, I get to work with so many kids. I can kind of see, where they're at and help them be like, all right, well, this is your goal. Like, you need to do this much, or you're on the trajectory, you're doing a good job and things like that. So I think breaking down goals, but also like having a plan, an action plan is the most important thing for these young players. Yeah.
And that applies to life, right? I mean, if you want to be a national sales manager, if you want to be, the head engineer, how are you going to get there? What are you going to do to get there? Yep. And I think that's a beautiful life lesson that you teach them. So along the way, I know a few years ago you had a massive challenge. So you want to describe what happened? Yeah. I think a lot of what you did before that prepared you to get through that, but I'd love to hear from you.
Yeah. About 4 years ago, of January 1st, 2021, I decided to go on an electric skateboard ride, which I don't remember. I came back to the hotel covered in blood, and my wife got an ambulance, went to the hospital. It was clear I had a head injury, and I ended up having a traumatic brain injury in result, which led to global aphasia, which takes away your ability to kind of have, to understand and also to speak. Yeah. So I was pretty much a vegetable, and it was very scary times. In terms of my memory, I don't remember anything from the accident. I think that's like a blessing, that your brain does, so you don't have nightmares and things like that. And I don't think about it. I ended up getting transported the private plane to the Shepherd Center, and that is kind of where my memory started to come back. Yeah. And that's where my mom explained what happened. And Chris, you had an accident. I don't know how many days she was saying it, but she was saying that same thing until the point, Chris, you had an accident. It's not your fault. Everything's okay. And that's where I started to, have a bit of my memory back, but still, I was not Chris, and had to, work my brain to get back into, speaking.
You told me everything.
Yeah,
I remember seeing the videos and texting with your family that you had to learn words, right?
Correct.
I mean, the very basic, what glass means.
Glass, right? Yeah. So it was kind of, I guess the way to compare it is, you're transported into a new country. You don't know anyone, or maybe you know people, but you can't speak their language, and then you just kind of have to figure it all out again. I felt like I had an advantage because it was up here somewhere, but through neurology, I think it's called neurothology. I forget. Big words. Still don't even know that one. But basically, you have to work. It's kind of like working your muscle. Right? Yeah. You got to work it, and to build, like, you have to work the neurons in your brain to help them reconnect and build. And as I started to build, then I feel like I got more momentum and things like that. But yeah, I had to, they were holding me cards of what, of an apple or a banana. And I had to say, that's an apple, banana. And I knew what it was, but I didn't. Wow. But once I heard it, I felt like I had it.
Yeah. And you were really fortunate. First off, you went to the best trauma center, right? For that specialty. And I know the community here in North Florida just was very supportive. And I know nationally, right? The lacrosse community. I remember, you're saying in my office here, I've got the medicine stick. You had a small lacrosse stick given to you, right?
Yeah. So I got sent, the lacrosse world was incredible. They created a GoFundMe for myself. And so I all the decisions that were probably going to be really tough decisions were made easy based on that. I got to the best treatment center in the world in Brooks Shepherd in Atlanta. And the medicine stick was something that was sent to me. And that was huge. Every picture that I have, I was holding it. My hand-eye coordination, that was something that never went away. But just holding the stick, it truly brought me back memories, which I was really excited when my memories started to come back.
Oh, okay.
Like, it's kind of crazy to say, but like I would tell my mom, do you remember when we did this or that? Because your memories are what make you, right? Yeah. And so without your memories, you are not you. And I felt like that's where I truly started to come back as Chris, when I started to get my memories back and having that stick. A lot of my memories are through the lacrosse people, and people would send me videos of my old teams saying, Chris, we're here for you. We got you. And I felt the power of that. I'll never forget the day I opened up my cell phone, which is I was in the hospital for over a month. And my mom hid my cell phone. She was the one next to me the entire time. She hid my cell phone from me because she was worried of how I would take it.
Sure.
And the first time she left the room, I was ready to, open up my cell phone, and I opened it up, and I'll never forget the outpouring. And I couldn't recognize the names. Like, I couldn't connect names with people, but I could connect the words, and everything was saying, the people were saying, Chris, we love you. You got this. Like, you can do it. We know you can. And just messages and messages. And that like put wings on my back. I felt like a strength, and I was going to get my life back, and I was going to do everything. And I felt the motivation, and I was ready to kind of, take over and like had people believing in me. So it's a huge point.
I mean, you just think of it, and at the time, your now wife was not your wife.
Yeah.
So she's girlfriend.
Girlfriend, yeah.
Thrown in the middle of having this boyfriend away and having to bring you back up to speed, and your mom. You had just so many great people support you, but you put the work in. I remember hearing stories of how many hours a day and then learning how to read, and then you finally got out of the hospital. How many months was it?
That was, I feel like it was like a month and a half.
Okay.
And then I came back, then I drove down to Jacksonville, and that was like the chapter 2.
Yes.
They called it Brain Camp 2.0.
All right.
And you're right. It was my mom, who was, in the hospital with me, and then Lindsay, who was my girlfriend at the time. Instead of,
she could have bailed.
Yeah. And instead of backing away, she was there every second of it. It's crazy. And I'm grateful for her, obviously.
She stepped up.
She stepped up.
You still thank her, right?
Still thank her. Maybe I should probably text her.
Because I remember vividly, I'd known you before this, and we were communicating through her and your mom.
Yeah.
And these are two women we didn't know at the time, and my wife and me, and it was amazing to see their strength and their focus on getting you back to health. And then remember one day we had coffee, and it was early on, and I don't even know if you really remembered me. Like we were talking about the kids that, you've coached so many kids in our area, and you were talking about how you don't quite remember the names yet. And it must have been just so frustrating because you have like inklings of memory, but how did you get through that time?
So that time, I think
it's got to be frustrating.
Yeah.
Too, right?
Yeah. It was frustrating. And learning was tiring.
Yes.
Like learning, it would make me exhausted, right? So we had at Brain Camp 2.0, I basically had this. I was trying to get into Brooks rehabilitation.
Sure.
And I was going to have therapists to teach me, but there was a window of time where I couldn't get in with insurance or whatever it was. So it was just like I was on my own, and I had an iPad that I just had to do puzzles and spelling and all these different things. It was like a little school, but when I would do it, it would make me exhausted and my head would hurt. And so instead of like napping, I was never really like a napper.
Yeah.
But that's when I used the tools from that I used to use as a coach and as an entrepreneur and as an athlete, and that was would do meditation. Meditation was a huge part of it. Instead of taking a nap, I'd go meditate or do Wim Hof breathing, which is something I used to do before games. Or, every morning we would go see the sunrise. And I lived across the street from the beach. We'd go and even though I was in a tough situation, it never really felt like that because there was so much to be grateful for. I could walk to the beach. I had my family. I had a lot of love. I had people pouring into me. And so I think the focus was always on the positive.
Sure.
And during that time, and it made me feel like I had, I knew I was going to get my life back and have freedom, which was the chase. I just wanted freedom. Yeah. I eventually wanted freedom from my mom and Lindsay because they were next to me, the whole time. I'll never forget. You actually came and picked me up at one point. That was a lot later.
I had to drive you.
Yeah, you picked me, brought me to the lacrosse, and that was a big moment. But yeah, it was definitely challenging. But it was just kind of having that vision of myself, speaking to teams and I really thought at that time I was going to be a speaker like John Gordon.
Yes, you connected with him through that. Yeah. That's how you met, right?
Yeah. So I had high vision,
I love that.
which kind of allowed me to be, just felt confident.
This is John's book, right there.
There it is.
Power of Positive Team.
Yeah.
One of many.
Nice.
So you talk to me about, I love the Wim Hof breathing, but I don't know much about meditation.
Yeah.
And it seems like it's a real part of your life.
Yeah.
I'd like to learn more about that.
Yeah. So I got into meditation. My cousin showed me, and it's really just it's just taking time to think about nothing.
Okay.
It's just to be very present. And what it did for me is I think during that time when my brain is just working and working and working and working, it gave me just a time to focus on nothing and be present in the moment in just 10 minutes, 10 minutes of that time.
Okay.
It's hard. Meditation is hard, because your brain and your thoughts are always going. And I think it just relaxes everything and just makes you focus on your breathing, and it kind of just gives your brain a break.
All right. This might be a terrible question.
Yeah.
Is there an app for that? Or is it the opposite?
Yeah, no.
Because I know you're supposed to detach.
Yeah.
How can one get into this?
I am the one that needs someone to tell me what to do. I've been that way. And so Headspace.
Okay.
The amount of hours I've logged on Headspace. So that's I think the best app.
Okay.
And then you can set it to 10 minutes, and then, 10-minute meditation. And they have all different types of things depending on what you're looking to achieve from it. Are
they talking you through?
Yeah, you got to have someone that talks.
Okay.
Some people are the real deal and just they play their own music.
Uh-huh.
I'm two steps behind that. I need someone just talking to me and tell me when to breathe, and then kind of.
So they saying envision a bird on a mountain or
They can.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 10 minutes is a starter pack?
10 minutes is this is for my preference.
What do you do?
I'm a 10-minute guy.
Okay.
And they'll start with some breathing and then they'll have their one message. And then, I think that's enough time for me to just kind of take a break from everything I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
and just, I think that's the point of it. It's just to give yourself a moment for your body and for you to connect with nothing.
I love that. Do you start your day with that? What time of day do you use?
I typically will wake up and then I'll start, I'll sometimes it's easier. So this is the hard part. You're supposed to get out of bed, and I get it because sometimes meditation could be hitting the snooze button.
Yes.
And you're not really doing it. You're just because you're just I just need 10 minutes. And then you listen to that thing and then you kind of fall asleep. Yeah. So you're supposed to, and I would, especially during my TBI time, I would get, I'd put myself in a spot on the floor or couch or outside where I'm taking the 10 minutes and not just waking up and then meditating.
Yeah. I love the sunlight in the eyes. It's fun. We at our firm here at Waycross, 2 weeks ago, we did an exercise where we all exchanged ideas of what we do in our lives to help us. And it could be anything, what you eat, what you drink or don't drink, or what you do. And mine is I get up every morning and I go in my front yard with bare feet in the grass. I ground and I face the sun.
Nice.
And that there's a few things to that, if you believe in what grounding affects, for inflammation, but also that triggers your body clock saying, all right, now we're awake. And it sets you up, for 12 hours later when it's time to go to sleep, 16 hours later. So it gets you going. So I love that you use the sunrise. And if we're, fortunate enough to be near the ocean, that's a beautiful thing. But, so much of our day is inside. You're an outside person. But for those of us in the office environment, we got to get outside.
Yeah.
And if you could start your day that way and don't scroll right away.
Right.
Like have your brain reset. And that's what I think the meditation. So you were meditating before the accident.
Yeah.
All right. So I think that helped your brain recover. There's a lot. And I see you're very physically active still. What are your tips and tricks? What are you doing these days?
So I'm someone that's always been told what to do, right? Around like football workouts, lacrosse workouts, and you go to college. And then actually that was a big struggle for me after you graduate. Like, they're like, okay, you have to stay fit, but no one's telling you what to do.
Yeah.
So I've always found like plans, like I was a beach body coach for a long time.
Yeah.
And so like the workouts, the original P90X, I got into all those different types of workouts. And now I'm an F45 guy here in Ponte Vedra. So I need someone to kind of, tell me what to do and I'll follow.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of been huge in staying active and fit. And, my biggest fear is being the coach that, has a big beer gut and like whistle hanging and is yelling at his players to go harder, go faster, or work hard. I'm like, how can you, say that and then, but clearly you don't do it, know? So I'm like, I always want to stay fit and stay healthy and active, and feel like a professional, even though I might not be anymore. I want to, play pickleball or do whatever.
Very good pickleball player.
Yeah, we've had some good battles.
So talk about now. You've got the camps. You are you still work in the youth. You work in our organization, and you train so many boys and girls or young men and women. And now you're in the PLL as well. I mean, you're a Superman. You're 7 days a week all summer. What's it been like being an assistant coach in the PLL now?
It's been more fun than I thought.
Oh, good.
I think the one thing I was, going into it, I was curious. We have a lot of guys that are college coaches. One of our best players he's a Notre Dame coach. So at first, to be honest with you, I came in and be like, all right, are these guys really going to listen?
Yes.
It's like, dude, and I learned very quickly that even the top players, right, they want to learn. They want to be told. They want to be coached.
That's amazing. Right? Now, these are 28-year-olds who've been the best, who have national championships in college and high school, etc. And now they still want to get better.
Yeah.
Right?
So that was the first message I brought. My club lacrosse team. We have 60 guys, and I brought them after training camp. I brought them in, and I said, all right, I got to tell you this because, after training camp, the first thing that I learned is that all these guys, no matter if they're the best, the reason why they are the best in the world is because they all have growth mindsets, right? There's not a stop. They're not at the point where like, okay, now I hit this level and now I don't need to learn anymore. They're all still trying to learn. So
phenomenal.
That was the coolest thing. Is like we have kids that are so young and they're like, no, coach, I know what I'm doing, And so it's like, no, they're not there because they have a certain trait, right? Of physicality. They're like stronger than everyone, faster than everyone, right? They're there because they probably had that growth mindset. If they have it at the top professional level, they've had it when they were younger and they listened and they learned and they got better. And I thought that was the coolest thing, that anyone can do it if they just have that type of mindset.
Yeah. I love that. That's so amazing. And, so you're doing that now. And you're still doing all these things, right? Still working with the youth, still working with college kids. And, overall, I think what you're doing mentally with the kids is so important as well. It's not just the physicality. They've got to have the best sticks. Yeah. They got to have the best skills, but you're trying to develop the total person. I think you're doing a great job, buddy. So I wish you the best. Thank you for sharing your story. And you can read and write now, correct?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You're proficient.
All back, yeah.
And think of that, in just 4 years' time. And you really recovered quickly. I think I know probably, every minute of the day felt like an hour.
Yeah.
But it's a tribute to the people that you had supporting you and your work ethic. So congratulations. And thank you for coming on Beyond the Break, Chris.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
The best. Keep going forward, buddy.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning in to Beyond the Break. If this conversation brought you value, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss an episode. We've got more real stories, sharp insights, and powerful turning points coming your way. See you next time.